Okay, welcome. This is our Empathy Cafe on how might XR, Extinction Rebellion, more effectively mediate conflict. And yeah, everybody here has done the empathy circle process before. Now we have somebody new joining us. Jessica?
Hello.
Hi, welcome.
Hi.
Do you have a video?
Yeah, sorry, just trying to set that up.
So we need
We
one.
should mention that we're recording.
Oh yeah, we are recording this. Thanks.
Are you okay with that? Because if
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi.
Hi. So we were just getting started. Want to start with introductions? We just go around, introduce ourselves, your name, where you're from, if you're part of Extinction Rebellion, what groups in Extinction Rebellion you're part of. So I'm Edwin Rutch I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area near Berkeley, California. And I'm part of the local San Francisco Extinction Rebellion group, as well as the online Empathy Circle work group. So Bob, do you want to let's call on you.
I'm Bob Brown from Thousand Oaks, California, USA, and I'm connected with XR America and Jonathan Logan and Michelle Weiner. Nice to be here.
Great. Bill?
Hi, my name is Bill Filler. I'm also in the San Francisco Bay Area. I'm part of the Empathy 10 team, and also I'm taking the XR facilitator training.
Okay, Marianne?
Hi, I'm Marianne. I live in Calgary, Alberta, in Canada, and I'm loosely connected with the local XR group. Basically, know a couple leaders who are wanting to deal with conflict better.
Great. Carolina?
my name is Kara, I'm calling from Poland, Central Europe. Yeah, I'm a member of local Extinction Rebellion group, and also international support team, Regenerative Culture Group, and Empathy Circle team.
Great. Jessica?
Hi, everyone. Part of the Hastings Extinction Rebellion group in Southeast England, Great Britain. I'm county coordinator for this region, and also coordinator of our local regen culture. So yeah, very excited to be on this call.
Great, welcome. James?
Hi, I'm James. I'm in Syracuse, New York. I'm not affiliated with an XR group, but I'm starting a group called Everyone Shut Up, which is about joining on what we have in common.
Okay, thanks. So, see, I know everyone except Jessica is familiar with the Empathy Circle practice. Did you see how it works online, Jessica? Just the process.
I've had a little look, but I'm new to empathy circles. I don't know how similar it is to grief circles, but we facilitate those locally. Yeah, I'm interested to learn more.
Okay, so I guess Bill, do you want to explain it? Just give or anybody else that just wants to give a little introduction, kind of just the basics.
Sure.
Very short.
Yeah. Basically, this is based on Carl Rogers' reflective listening. And at its core, it's listening to someone, listening for the content, the feelings, and the values without judgment, and reflecting that back as clearly as possible.
Yeah, and yeah, well, the process is, one person will speak, you select who you're going to speak to, you speak for, up to 5 minutes, and then, you say a little bit, an idea or two, you pause and let the person who you're speaking to reflect back what they hear you say, and you just check if they, reflected it back accurately, and so then you continue on. and then you share some more, and you pause, and the person reflects back. And we have up to 5 minutes you can share. And then once, or if you don't want to speak anymore, you're complete, you can say, I feel fully heard, or just something to indicate you're done speaking. And then it becomes the listener's turn to select who they're going to speak to, and they speak to them, and it goes around. So you can kind of just learn it by observation too. It's fairly easy. So we're kind of at a different, we have 7 people, so 4 people is good per circle, so you have more time to speak. So I'm not really sure what to do. What do you think, to divide into 2 groups or just do one big one? So James, one group. Okay, one group, getting kind of one. Okay, then we can just start. Would somebody time keep? Does somebody want to do a time? Thanks, Bill.
Bill is keeping time, or
He
me?
said he would take time. Yeah.
Okay.
Unless you have a great desire to do it.
No.
Okay.
So our topic is, how might XR more effectively mediate conflict? So whoever wants to start, maybe we can sort of demonstrate it.
Just one thing, if we don't speak, let's mute ourselves so we don't interfere.
Yeah, thanks. So if someone would like to start, we can maybe do a little bit before Jessica takes part, just so that she can kind of observe a few rounds.
Thank you.
So whoever would like to start, select who you'd like to speak to. Okay, Bob?
Marianne, would you please listen to me?
Sure.
I got my first taste of XR conflict last night. The group that I'm with, XR America, is focused almost entirely on the environment. And there were some members of XR America who felt that we should be including in the emphasis justice, especially in terms of the races. And our moderator said, justice is an important issue, and we will not deny anybody the right to speak about justice, and we want to focus on the environment, because if there's no life on Earth, there's no chance for justice anyway, so let's take that as our priority. And so the people who were speaking about the justice side of things kind of went, and I'm tickled by this.
Okay, so you're feeling tickled because last night there was some, or I don't know if you said last night, but at the last meeting there was some conflict. I'm not sure if you used that word in the XR group, because some people want to bring more justice focus in, and most of the group wants to prioritize the environment, even though they recognize justice is important and legitimate.
Right. And so they have formed a new group, XR Justice. And I'm wondering, how many splinter groups will XR embrace? And will there be a collective mass, a critical mass of folks who can pressure the governments into environmental correction without that critical mass?
So you might be concerned to see that the group who want to focus on justice are forming a splinter group, and you're kind of wondering, like, with some concern, if there are going to be too many splinter groups, not well enough embraced to have an impact on what they're actually trying to do. It might water down the efforts of the whole group, something like that.
Yep. And I just learned yesterday also that the Sierra Club is planning climate strikes for April 22nd through 24th in conjunction with Earth Day. And so there's the Sierra Club, there's XR, and there's Jane Fonda down in LA doing her environmental stuff. And I am hoping that we can all have some solidarity, as they say, solidarnos, is that what it is, Carolina? Anyway, Lech Valenza, pray for us for effectiveness and solidarity and power.
Mm-hmm. So there's different initiatives going on by different groups, and you are really hoping that there'll be some togetherness, some solidarity among those groups for what you're trying to do, what they're trying to do.
Marianne, thank you. I feel fully heard. Thanks very much.
Okay. Okay. Okay, Bill, would you be my listener?
Be happy to, Marianne.
Okay. Funnily enough, I feel a little bit on the spot. It does have to do with this being recorded. But regardless, I'm here because, and also because I'm not so involved with XR and empathy circles as you are. But I'm here because I want to learn more about it through experience. And I want to be a resource for my local community. And I really want to again see something going. So your support and help and ideas is helpful to me.
Okay. So you're feeling a little bit put off because of the recording, just a little, you're not against it, but I feel that, you know, you're a little bit nervous about it. So, and you're not as involved as some of the, you know, others of us, sorry. And, but you're really interested in what's happening and you want to become a resource for your local community and you want to see which kind of tools or skills can really help as things move forward. Did I get it right?
Well, I think this tool can really help. I'm really sure of that. And I want to initiate something. And what helps me to initiate something is working with other people. I don't have enough other people here in Calgary to work with. So at the moment, you're my people.
Got it. Okay. So you really want to do something and we're your support group and you appreciate it.
Right, right. So one person from XR will be, I'm talking with, and I thought maybe one idea would be to ask her if there's one other person in the Calgary, local Calgary group that she thinks would be interested. And then I might ask one of you to join us and we pick a time that works. So at least two people in their XR group would have an experience of this.
So you're thinking of asking, you know, one other XR person in your immediate vicinity. And so you're thinking about introducing the idea of the empathy circle and then having one of us to join so that another XR person would learn the skill.
Yeah, that's right. I have lots of ideas. I'm a full of ideas person, but which idea is going to come to life and take, you know, take flight? I don't know, but that's kind of my latest idea to help move things along instead of talking about it.
So you are a person that's full of ideas and obviously there's not enough time to see each one actualized. So you're making a decision right now, but this seems to be achievable and a good first step and may lead to other things.
Yeah, it's achievable in my mind, but I kind of am putting it out to see what all of you think about that idea. And I'm really very interested in your thoughts.
Okay. So you're interested in our thoughts, essentially, whether we would be willing and able to support you in this particular project.
Right, and also with anything, you know, that's a bit new to what I've said.
Okay.
Sure.
and other sort of things that might grow out of this
Yeah.
the conversation.
Yeah. That's right. That's great. You've heard me.
Okay, great. All right, thanks. Okay. All right. Jessica, how you feeling? Do you think you're ready, or you want just a couple more practice shots here?
I could give it a go.
Okay, great. So then will you listen to me, please?
Sure.
Thank you. Okay. I guess I first reply to Marianne. As far as I'm speaking for myself, sounds like a great idea. I'm all for an easy on ramp for people, and certainly I would personally volunteer my time or something to make that small group thing happen. I'll stop there, and you can reflect that.
So it sounds like you are open to the offer or the request
Mm-hmm.
to get on board with the idea that Marianne had.
Mm-hmm.
And you seem quite up for the challenge of that. Is that right?
Yeah, it's exciting. And let's see. And I've been listening to a lot of XR chatter, and I'm trying to kind of organize the information. I'll stop there.
So it sounds like there's a lot of information, or maybe a lot of different opinions that you've been trying to disseminate in your own mind. It sounds like potentially that's been slightly overwhelming for you. Is that right?
Well, there's XR is a new movement, and so not that the people are immature, but the movement is immature, and there are contradictory themes going through XR. I'll stop there.
So it sounds like you recognize that the movement is in its infancy, and with that comes, stumbling blocks and obstacles, and within the urgency of our predicament, that can cause or add to the difficulties. And I sense a little bit of maybe frustration, or is that right?
Let's see. As Edwin never tires of hearing about, I am a retired special education teacher. That's an inside joke. But essentially, what you had to do with emotionally disturbed students is create a functional mini society with people. I've had kids with 130 IQ and 80 IQ. I've had white supremacists with, black and brown students, sexism, with girls and stuff. And that's all brought to the classroom. And so you have to make a coherent culture there. And I'll stop there. That's a lot.
So, I heard you describe the wealth of experience you have around managing lots of different people and opinions, backgrounds, and stuff, all the stuff that they bring with them, and the challenges that throws up. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. And to be successful, I did it for almost 40 years. So under that stress, and to be successful, nobody's perfect, including me, or my assistants, and certainly not the students at that particular point. So you have to create a system that emphasizes people's strengths while supporting their weaknesses. I'll stop there.
So it sounds like you have a clear idea about what you believe is a good way to cut through all of the stuff that you previously described. And it sounds to me through kind of,
sure,
maybe making some conclusions around that, is that you have a strong idea about how the movement, XR movement, should move forward?
I have some ideas. I'm not as quite as clear or as, you know, obviously that we face an existential dilemma that is very complex. But what I do understand, what I think is a general good rule of thumb, and my time's about to end, is that you need to utilize the strengths of everybody and then support each other in their weaknesses. And that's a good rule of thumb, operating rule of thumb, that can operate across conflicts and philosophies. And I'm done.
So sorry, I might struggle a bit with this, but did I hear you say that a good kind of way to move forward is to support people? I'm not sure that I.
Sure.
Sorry.
That's right. That's fine. Again, it's not a contest. No, is that you learn to utilize people's strengths.
Right.
You support people in their weaknesses.
Okay. Yeah. So you want to encourage people to bring forward the skills that they have, and to use those skills in a way that empowers them. While supporting those or people's kind of challenges and helping them skill up or train up or get to where they want to be.
Right, with the knowledge that that includes me. In other words, we're all mixed bags. We all have strengths and weaknesses. So that requires a certain amount of openness and vulnerability as well. And
right.
I'm done. Yeah.
Okay. Should I try and hear what you said in the last bit?
You can do a quick reflection, sure.
Yeah, so it sounds like you recognize that, we all come with our stuff, and that if we can be honest and open and allow ourselves to be vulnerable and recognize the vulnerability in others, that somehow we can support each other through the difficulties within the movement.
Thanks, Jessica. I feel fully heard.
So I choose someone to hear me. Is that right? Maybe Edwin's next, or he's below me. So is that okay? I haven't really thought. Maybe I misunderstood. I haven't really thought of a specific issue that I'm having, but I could. Yeah, I'm sure that I can think of one. Okay, so I've recently taken on a new role, which is a coordinator of our county, which is East Sussex. It's quite a big area in the southeast of England, and then we are within the southeast region. And we are now gearing up for our May rebellion. And coronavirus has hit the UK, and there's lots of discussion now within the government about groups coming together. And France has just banned groups of up to 500 coming together. So we're wondering, how much to go ahead and plan or to wait on new government legislation. I'll stop there.
Okay, so you're planning, in your local group, you're planning events, actions, and then a topic that's coming up is what to do about the coronavirus. And you're seeing that, like in France, they're banning certain size of meetings and groups, and so you're kind of just dealing with that, wondering maybe what to do, how to sort of address that with your events.
Exactly. It's difficult because at the moment we're trying to mobilize 1 million people in the UK to join us for the next rebellion. So we have something called mass mobilization. I don't know how different XR America is. But there's a big drive now to mobilize, and it feels like this thing has come at exactly the point when we're trying to get loads of people together.
Yeah, so this is like a real challenge. It's like the goal is get 1 million people out there in the streets, and then right now here comes coronavirus, and what do you do how do you deal with addressing that?
So that's one problem, but then the problem that we're having internally and where the conflict is arising is disagreements between internal coordinators and XR members. about how to move forward with this.
So the conflict is how to move forward, and it's different. The internal group, and I think there was another group. There's different groups that are in conflict about how to move forward.
Yeah, individuals within both groups are. Lots of people want to just crack on and start organizing actions for May Rebellion, and we've kind of psyched ourselves up for May, and with some people are really fixed on the idea of that date, and other people make the point that we've always been encouraged to be fluid and like water, and maybe design actions but not be so rigid about particular dates or things, that we have to be adaptable.
So the conflict is between people who are like really rigid, like on May we're going to do this, and then others like, well, just be a bit fluid and be more adaptive. So that seems to be the kind of a major conflict between those two points of view. And
because I'm new to this role, I'm finding mediating between this conflict. I mean, I personally can see both sides, but my challenge right now is finding a way to keep people in solidarity and not have people leave or fight because of it. Like, that's where I'm at, is de-escalating and trying to bring people together. And I notice what comes up in me, my stuff is like to run away from that and not want to deal with it. So that's my internal conflict.
Mm-hmm. So your role in this is actually to sort of mediate, bring the different sides together, but you're kind of inherently, it's like you're feeling like, oh, you kind of want distance, so you can have this conflict. Not only do you have to mediate conflict between the two sides, you're also mediating sort of conflict with just wanting to detach versus from even dealing with the conflict.
That's right. So yeah, it's good just to actually say all that stuff out loud. Thank you.
Yeah, it's like helpful just to verbalize all this, not just have it rolling around in your head, but verbalize it, share it.
Yeah. Is my time up?
I don't know what happened to Bill. He was doing timekeeping, but yeah, okay, time was it. So James looks like he was keeping time too. So it's my turn, and I'll speak to Carolina. Are you still there, Bill? We just see just don't see your picture, but yeah. So you're doing timekeeping, James? Okay, thanks. Yeah, in terms of conflict, the one that was coming up for me was about what Bob was saying about the social justice, the conflict with people wanting social justice as part of XR. And then that's sort of been the core of XR US. And there's been a conflict where people are starting XR America because they don't want this kind of far left social justice approach. So that's a major conflict that I'm seeing.
So you're referring to what Bob was saying about situation in the United States, in XR US. And there is a group of people who prefer to add fourth demand about social justice to the three demands of XR. And there is a group, XR America, who prefer to not add because they believe that climate situation is crucial to everything, and this is the thing we should deal first.
Yeah,
however,
okay. It's also that I think they even have a fourth demand in XR America. So it's not so much about the fourth demand. It's more about the mindset underneath. Is a mindset of social justice. It tends, and I know XR America is saying that it tends to polarize, right? It's if you social justice has a tendency to sort of polarize. It's us versus them versus something that's more inclusive, which is what they want to do, something that just is open to everyone. So I think those are the two underlying mindsets.
So XR America also, so you're talking about two mindsets in XR in United States, and both have four demands, but they put differently the attention to it. They differently emphasize them, and one group focuses on sort of polarization and social and cultural injustice, and the other group try to put it more in more balanced way, more into solidarity and focusing on the climate more.
Yeah, they want to bring people together. It's not really solidarity. That's more of a European term that
Okay.
I don't use.
Okay. So you correct me that it's more like bringing people together.
Yeah.
Not polarizing them.
Yeah. And so I think the core, though, is can we support the sides in doing empathy circles? So I'd love to get a couple people from XR US, XR America, bring them together into an empathy circle so they can have these dialogues, as well as like what Jessica is dealing with. Can we bring the sides together who want, who are fixed on doing actions and those that, want to be a bit more flexible? Can we just support the movement with bringing the sides together, having empathy circle dialogues?
So you're thinking about using empathy circle to help those two groups meet together and start dealing with this conflict between them. And you suggest to meet few people from this option, this side, and few people from the other side, and to set the empathy circle so we will be talking together.
Yeah, so that's why I see the importance of what we're doing here is to really spread this practice, as widely as possible within XR, so to make it so that the different sides can, really, speak to each other and, kind of build from there. There's a lot more needs to be done besides that, but I think it's just a good starting point.
So you're thinking about this is also a good opportunity to spread the tool, which is empathy circle, because we need more dialogue in general in many things, but this is the good point to start.
Yeah.
That's what you mean?
Yeah, that's why I think it's important what we're doing here. So yeah, so glad if Bob has any people he wants, I know Jonathan from XR. Oh, okay, Jonathan from XR America was very interested in this and others. So, and then also Jessica, if you have any people, we're glad to support those dialogues online. So just that's the last part.
So I'm sorry, I was a little bit distracted by what was happening on the screen. So you mean that you invite Jessica and Bob to organize such empathy circles with about topics, problems they see?
Exactly. I feel fully heard. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So James, would you listen to me? I'm trying to think about the problem more systematically or more systemically. I'm thinking about building kind of system within XR. And I'm thinking about it because I have this impression that we have a lot of documents about conflict resilience, conflict resolution, but we kind of don't implement the processes, the advice, the tips. We don't implement that into our SOS, self-organizing system. I stop there.
Sure. Carolina, I hear you saying that you want to put your attention on a systems analysis, and there are many documents about conflict, but they're not being integrated into the self-organizing systems.
Yeah, a lot of conflicts appear right now around the globe in all XR organizations, groups. And every time conflicts appear, they address their problem to some arbitral bodies asking for help. They don't try to deal with their problems within the group. It happened. It's kind of tendency to seeking for help somewhere else.
So a pattern you see in groups all around the world is that when conflicts arise, the group reaches out to an outside authority rather than going inward and addressing it amongst the people within the group somehow.
Yeah, the problem is there is no any authority outside the group because it's a flat structure, not hierarchical. And obviously there are regenerative working groups and conflict resolution groups, but this is the kind of body people address their problems, and they expect somebody else to fix the problem when it should be the job of the group that has a problem.
So you're pointing out that XR is fundamentally non-hierarchical, and yet the individual groups are reaching out to other groups, but there is no other group that is really exists or capable of solving that first group's problem.
Well, there is something we call working groups. It's different from local group or affinity groups. It's kind of group that specialize in particular issue, and it might be a conflict resolution and the regenerative cultures. And those groups specialize in helping in conflict, but it should be the last resort, not the first step in a conflict. So my interest is to find the way how to implement into every group, everybody in our structure, the processes that help deal with conflict.
Yes, you don't want the working groups that have a focus on conflict to be managing everyone's conflict. You want conflict management to be built into the structure of each group.
Yeah, and I believe it should be, first of all, some set of customs every group cultivates. I don't know, for example, monthly council when people meet just to talk about issue that's happening in a group, not about particular topics, but a situation in a group. It might be support network, buddy system that helps people to deal with their stress. And it's okay. I'm wrapping up. And then the last thing, it should be a particular procedure. It can be a system of empathy circle or restorative empathy circle, or if somebody prefer Dominic Barter restorative circles, that is implemented into the group.
So the way you think that each group could do this is by having a series of having customs or procedures that they follow that are generally helpful for dealing with conflict, and you want to see groups have those agreements, procedures, customs.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, I feel good.
Okay. Marianne, would you listen to me?
Happy to listen to you.
Thank you. So I'm very much in the same boat as Carolina in terms of thinking about systems. And I think a systems lens really is useful for us in thinking about how groups are able or unable to deal with conflict. There is a definition of systems that I go to help me understand these things. And it is that systems survive, develop, and transform by integrating and distinguishing differences. And that's just a fancy way of saying that we have similarities and differences, and when the differences grow too big, things break apart and there's polarization. But when we can find the places to connect on what is similar, then the group develops, grows stronger, and can become becomes more able to deal with more difficult and specific issues.
Can I reflect that? Or
please, yeah, please. Well,
sure, go ahead.
Yeah, just no, please reflect it. Just a simple version is fine.
Okay, yeah, you really relate to Carolina. You feel like you're in the same boat in terms of the value of systems. And there's an approach, a systems lens that you go to help understand all of this. And basically it's that within all groups, there's a certain amount of diversity that we can grow, integrate, develop, and strengthen the group through doing that. But if there's too much diversity, there can be polarization.
Within all groups, there's both similarities and differences. Yeah.
Yes, and within all groups, there's
yeah.
similarities.
You don't have to just parrot me
Right.
that. Yeah, thank you. So so what I've been doing when I join these groups and what I've been doing today is trying, as I listen to each person talk, trying to identify what are the similarities and the differences in what people are bringing in. So I identify the similarity that people here want to find ways to contribute to the XR movement. That's what brings us together. That's kind of what strengthens us. And
sorry, would you mind just saying that once more?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
The similarity.
What I do when I'm listening quietly is I'm trying to find the threads of similarity between what people are saying, if they're there.
Right. Sorry, I did get that part. It was the other.
I'm not sure I said anything else, but
okay. Okay. Good. Okay. I got that you're listening here for that thread of similarity, and I presume difference.
Yes. Well, so yes, and the thread that I identify is that we all want to find ways to contribute to building a stronger XR movement.
Okay, that's
the difference, I suppose, that is glaring to me is that each of us is working a bit I mean, understandably, in our own kind of silo or area or country location. And that creates a bit of a challenge. We're not talking, we kind of go back and forth between talking about how we can organize local areas and how we can support XR movement globally, like online. And I know I'm noticing, I'm identifying that as an area of that's kind of creating noise and making it harder for us to work together.
Okay, and a difference that you're noticing is that we're all in different geographical locations, and there's this this thing going between working locally and working online, and you feel that's creating a certain amount of noise.
Yes, exactly. Thank you.
Okay. Hmm. Or maybe Edwin. Edwin, you can listen to me. Is that okay?
Yep, I'm listening.
I have a lot of just thoughts coming up. Well, actually, one question, procedural, is it okay with a person passes?
Yeah, so you're just wondering, a lot's coming up and you're wondering if you can pass. And since it's procedural, you can just say, I feel fully heard, and that's the end. So.
But I mean, like, I have an opportunity to talk right now, and if I pass, then my engagement is just a bit different. And I'm wondering if that's okay.
Yeah, you can just pass. Okay. Just say that you're fully heard, and then it's whoever you're speaking to it'll be their turn. That's one way to pass.
Well, I'm not going to take the opportunity. I mean, I am going to take the opportunity to talk because I like to.
Yeah, it's like you're just curious about how do you pass, but you like to talk, so you're going to take the opportunity to talk.
Well, yeah, I think the strongest thing that comes up for me, it's very interesting because I feel it very strongly in this group or sometimes with Americans, and I don't even like to say that, but it is true. And so I do feel like, to qualify that, I grew up with Americans till I was 13. So I have a very warm familiarity with something that I love, that I feel is the nature of Americans. I've done a lot of traveling. And spending time with other cultures. So it's a little bit informed by that, but I think Americans have a warm, open friendliness towards each other. So I just want you to know that.
So you're just wanting to share an observation that you feel that Americans have a warm friendliness between each other.
Yeah, it's more than an observation, it's an experience.
Oh, mm-hmm.
Even my closest community to me is in Portland. They're my tango community.
So it's like it's more than just an observation, it's like a personal experience. The people you're feeling closest with are people in Portland, actually.
But having lived so many years in Canada, I have developed another perspective. I get nervous too, talking like this. But what comes up for me is my value, and it is a Canadian value, of diversity. So when I hear Americans, for example, use the word unity, and maybe that's their word versus solidarity, I don't know. It would be so interesting to explore the meaning of those two different words. But when I hear that more and more, I I get uncomfortable. I start to think about sameness and a desire for people to be the same. I don't understand how there could not be a value for our differences. There's part of me that feels like that.
Yeah. So you value diversity, and when you hear the term unity, you're sensing that that's sort of like getting rid of diversity, the differences, and creating sort of a sameness, and you don't understand that that's trying to have sameness.
Right, that it's a value that kind of trumps it and like squish out the difference, yeah, or water differences down. For example, in the last month, we've had all kinds of oppositions, like things pop up, stopping railroads because of in support of Indigenous people on the West Coast whose land. Anyway, all of these initiatives were not organized by one initiative. They were all ad hoc, and that lends a certain strength to the support.
Okay, so you have this issue in Canada that was organized just sort of ad hoc, a lot of different groups kind of organizing it, and you see a certain strength instead of having one big central group organizing it, that there's a lot of difference because it creates a quality of strength you
Mm-hmm.
find.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah. Do you feel heard?
Well, just to say, I guess there's a certain, it adds a credibility to the extent of the support for these people when there were so many different places that were like coming forward.
Mm. So you find that it's more credible when there's all these different people giving support.
Yeah.
So you kind of see that just creates credibility.
Yeah, I feel heard. Thanks.
Okay, great. Then yes, I'll speak to Jessica.
Hi.
Hi. Yeah, just not even sure what to talk about either.
Mhm.
So, oh, I know. It's about the systems thinking that Carolina was talking about, and that's sort of what I've been thinking with empathy circles. Is that if everyone, I'd like to see everyone in XR be able to take part in an empathy circle, be able to facilitate an empathy circle, and actually do it. So that those skills are embodied in everyone in XR.
I hear that you're saying that you feel quite passionately that you really believe in the power of empathy circles, and you would like to see people taking on facilitation of them, and for people to be able to facilitate these meetings, and for the ripple effect maybe to for that empowerment of people to listen and hear each other. Is that right?
It's sort of like everyone is trained in being a mediator. Instead of you go out to look for mediation, it's like everyone has those mediation skills and sort of practice sort of built in. And I think it'd really help XR. And if we can kind of spread just that sort of mediator listening mindset throughout the world, I think that would just help in general for greater well-being.
So sounds like, what you're saying is in order for us to support each other, to give us the resilience and the strength really that we need in order to grow the movement or cope with what's coming, that these empathy circles can be used as mediation, and that we can self-facilitate them and be empowered to do that. Is that
Yeah,
right?
exactly. It is one part of, one of the benefits of, it's basically just how do we get people to listen and talk with each other, not interrupt, we're just tapping into some basic human quality of, if you listen to people, give them space, and you do that mutually, and it's mutual, things just work out better. You're able to kind of address problems and issues and be more creative, etc. So, it's like, and how to sort of spread that is.
Yeah, so it sounds like, you talk about it being very kind of would have been very natural to us, but maybe we've been taught out of this way of being with each other, and we need to kind of seek out someone professional to come and sort us out. Whereas what I hear you saying is that we have the power to do that for ourselves if we just tap into our own intuition, maybe. And these groups can be so profound and so simple and so profound.
Yeah, and it's, we do need some skills. You do need to sort of rewire the brain. I find just doing this over and over again, listening, it sort of rewires the brain, so the default is being willing to listen, and it takes time to rewire. There's neural networks that get wired, and it's sort of the neurons that fire together, wire together. So the more listening you do, you're rewiring the brain so that it's more automatic, right? Because you have the neural networks for listening are sort of, developed more.
So not to take away from some complexity here that, or some training that needs to happen. It's a simple setup, but it takes practice, and we need to cultivate that practice of it, because we've lost the way to do this, and it would be beneficial to bring it back, but to retrain ourselves to relearn how to hold space for each other. And again, I sense your belief in how powerful this technique is.
Yeah, and I'm thinking maybe maybe we should be more focused on the topic of how do we spread empathy circles in XR. Have separate meetings or just about that. How do we really do that systemic change that Carolina and James are sort of talking about,
So I hear you have a desire for maybe breaking out into a separate group or have a separate group with a different agenda, which is to discuss the practicalities around how we make this happen, how we allow it to spread.
Yep, that's it. Thank you. Feel heard.
Okay, so I choose someone to hear me now. I'm really enjoying this, guys. Thank you. Bob, are you able to hear me?
I'm listening.
So it's really interesting hearing everyone. Thank you so much I really feel that it's so profound. I love it. And what has just come up for me is that, so I did a little bit of training, but you know how it is with an XR, it's basically you just learn a bit and go for it, which is great. And so I did a little bit of training on how to facilitate grief circles. And in our local group, I worked really hard at promoting it, practicing it, holding space for people, being an example in that I would, really kind of share my truths and give permission for people to do that as well. Like really wanted it to work maybe, and maybe was attaching too much to it emotionally, maybe was really wanting it and felt. So what happened was it was well attended a bit for a short period of time, but the attendance of those meetings spiked at particular moments. So we had a general election here, and when the result came through that it was the Conservatives that won, there was just massive despair amongst our community, and the grief circles attendance spiked. I'll stop there. Sorry, it's a lot of info.
You are really jazzed about these empathy circles that you're in today, and it's a profound experience and you love it. and you're talking about the grief circle experience in XR, and you're facilitating these and opening space for people to use that process. And then the general election occurred, and a conservative victory put people in despair, and the grief circle attendance spiked. And so you're confronted with this large number of folks.
No, that's not the problem in the way I wish it was. But so it spiked at that point, and but that was just like a couple of meetings where it was really well attended, and then just kind of petered out, and people stopped coming. And to be honest, it never really got off the ground. And I think so we played around with different names. We stopped calling it Grief Circle because we thought maybe that was putting people off, so we called it Sharing Circle. But people just weren't coming, and I think that people really struggle with sharing their emotions, and that's kind of understandable in our current system and our way of being. And but it's like a couple of people have said, oh, but don't stop them, it's just so reassuring to know that they exist, and I do want to come, it's just really hard. Anyway, there's this real resistance from people that in their hearts want to attend and want to have a circle of people and feel held in that space and allow grief or anxiety or dread or whatever it is to manifest, but just don't want to go there. They don't want to go there. They don't want to allow those feelings to, maybe they feel shame or whatever it is. So it was just interesting hearing Edwin talk about wanting to make this happen, make this spread, the empathy circles, because it reminded me of how I too had wanted this to really work within our local community, XR community, but how I keep coming up against this wall where people just don't want to go there with the grief, and so I don't want to be known as like, oh, there goes Jess, like she's still pushing the grief circles on us. I don't want to be known as like, oh God, don't look, she's gonna tell us that we should be coming to a grief circle. But I also want people to know that it's available to them. And
so the situation you describe is the spike in attendance has subsided, and you believe there is a great deal of dread, grief, anxiety, fear, and you want to create groups that will help heal that. And there is a great deal of reticence for folks to participate in that for a number of reasons, perhaps shame, perhaps just insecurity or whatever it is. But you want to make these groups viable and alive and filled with people using them to using these groups to come to a better place as a XR community.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel that having experienced circles, like these, like the grief circles, that I have firsthand experience of seeing how profound this work is, and just kind of feel drawn to spreading the good news, and wanting people to know that this is a resource that they can use. And yeah, just talking this through is useful, because in my head now I'm hearing, well, just keep running them and then people will know that they're there. And then, it's maybe a slow process, but just for people to know that they're available is all I can do, I guess.
So as you are energized and enlightened and enlivened by your experience with these groups, you're inspired to continue to offer them and to be faithful to that and to keep inviting people. And you have the hope that this will involve more folks and draw them to these groups. And you can be very helpful in organizing them and coordinating them.
Yeah, and in the nature of XR being decentralized and leaderless, I don't want to be the sole keeper of these groups, but I want them to self-facilitate to a certain extent, although that can be tricky in the short term. But yeah, I think that's it. You summarized well. I feel a need to continue holding space for others, and for other people to experience it and know like how empowering it can be, and how it can build resilience and solidarity within a community.
So although you are really gung-ho on this idea, you do not want to become known as the only person who does this. You want the responsibility to be shared, and you want to empower the entire community in this empathy process so that we can all reap the benefits of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
James, would you please listen to me?
Certainly.
Well, I feel a calling that XR America, XR Justice, there's a group called Pace e Bene, which is a nonviolent group based in Corvallis, Oregon. The Jane Fonda group in LA, the Sierra Club, a guy named John Deere. I'm faced with a wonderful task of trying to connect all these folks in an empathy circle and use empathy for the good of the world.
Yeah, so there's a number of groups you're connected to that are asking you to connect them together with using empathy circles, and you feel good about doing that as like it'll be for the good of all the world if that can, you know, these groups can come together and do that.
One little wrinkle, these folks don't know that I'm going to do this to them. I'm going to invite them as graciously as I can and hope that folks from these various diverse groups can find a connection and a unity that will be of benefit.
So right now it's just a plan of yours to invite them in to connect for everyone's benefit.
And when I was in grad school 35 years ago, the important phrase that I took out of the entire program was unity in diversity. And how can we develop the consciousness that allows a deep, profound unity which embraces a wide, diverse expression of the human situation?
So the phrase unity in diversity was something you got in grad school that's very meaningful to you, and you're trying to apply that here with maybe with those groups, or you're suggesting it for all of us to keep it in mind that that those two opposites kind of work together.
Yes. And so from my experience in trying to hold in tension unity and diversity, I am convinced for me that meditation, daily meditations, create in me the space that can embrace and apprehend and comprehend this wondrous, wondrous mystery of unity and diversity.
So for you, the practice of meditation is a way to connect to that paradox or that mystery held in that phrase.
Yes, yes, yes. James, thank you. I feel fully heard.
Okay. Bill, would you listen to me?
Happily, James.
Okay. I'm going to bring in a little diversity. I see people smiling. I like to say that because I don't want to jar people too much. I want to
anyway, so there was I was finding it difficult this second round. I started feeling a bit chaotic because there's a lot of theory and there's just a lot of stuff getting thrown. I feel like we're all sitting around a table throwing stuff on top of a table, and I'm feeling frustrated because there's some things I wanted to respond to directly that I think are just getting dropped because of how much stuff is getting put on the table, and it feels it feels frustrating.
Okay. So you wanted to bring in a difference or a diversity about the process, and you feel that there's so much coming up that you're feeling a bit frustrated because it doesn't allow you to address certain specific issues you'd like to address.
So yes, one thing specifically, I'm looking at Edwin and I'm thinking, is Edwin paying attention? I think I see him working on his computer, and I'm having this judgment about the process, about how when we speak to one person, other people shut down. They're like, I don't have to listen. And this is not about Edwin, because I feel the pull to myself. I feel like I have to use more concentration and more energy to stay focused listening, even though I know that I'm not in there somehow as fully.
So you're looking at the role we call the passive listener, and it does take a lot of concentration to be in the passive listener role. And you're just wondering, and you mentioned Edwin, but it wasn't just Edwin; it occurs in us all. Of where when we're passive listeners, we tend to our attention wanders.
Yeah. And one thing I've been doing, I have really wanted to write in the chat as a way of maybe staying more engaged. And I have not done that because I'm aware that it would then it would drag people further out of paying attention to who's speaking.
So you were thinking about writing in the chat as a way of expressing yourself more fully, but you're also trying to be respectful of the process and the fact that it would kind of divert people's attention, or has the possibility to divert people's attention.
Yes or no? I'm not even sure we have a clear agreement around the use of the chat and process, but it's my sense, for the purpose of giving people an opportunity to be heard, I think it could detract. Also, this is important, talking about systems, I heard a kind of homage paid to paying attention to systems, and then I hear kind of a talk. It's like, how do we change the system? Well, let's use this technique and just kind of propagate it. And for me, that's actually not systems thinking. That is a technique that we are offering, hoping that the system takes it on. And I'm not an expert on systems, but I have a sense that what is going to be more effective systemically is if we, as a group, really hone our ability to work as a group, work within this process, and develop what in the literature is known as the phases of group development. Basically, that we develop as our group, and that becomes a model for other groups, rather than saying, oh, we're done. This is we've got a perfect process. What we have to do is get it to people. It's a little bit arrogant of us.
Okay. So you're saying that, that this is, that this is, a good process, but you feel that there's a certain lack of focus, and that it's not just getting this tool to people and that being enough, but rather it requires that we're using this tool. Okay, let's develop the group, and develop group cohesion so that we can then develop more specific projects, maybe. I'm not quite sure of that, but specific actions that would really, develop the idea.
Let me interrupt you. So
Sure.
it's decidedly not actions and not projects, but it is it's our group, that our group as a group of specific individuals would develop and strengthen. That's it.
Okay, so the contrast that I'm seeing is that rather than just simply saying, okay, here's the tool, and go use it and expecting certain things to happen, you're talking about developing the group and the personal skills in this group, although you're not talking about specific actions or projects at this point, but more like focus on the group development and cohesion.
That's good enough for now. Thank you. Yes.
Okay. That's tough. Okay. All right. Let's see. All right. Carolina? I'll talk to you.
Yes.
Okay. So it was very interesting. A few things that everybody is talking about, and we're sort of, I think, I feel, what I feel is that there's a yearning or a striving in all of us for something, and we're just struggling with defining it. And I'll stop there.
So you referring to what everyone is talking here about, and you feel that there is a strong desire in every one of us to find something, but it's not clear what it is.
Yeah, we haven't. And so for me, and again, in my work experience, let's see, the goal was the hierarchy, the goal. So in my experience, it was always the best student outcome. So, so that was the goal. And if I were going to assert any kind of authority or direction, I felt that I had to validate what I was asking people to do by justifying that it was, they could see that it was a step towards helping the student, and that was our number one goal.
So you're thinking about goal as sort of authority for all. And when there is a problem of decision making and the general functioning of the group, the goal is the authority for any action, sort of, and it helps to make decision. This awareness of the fact of our goal.
Right, and there could be several paths to that goal. And so in the thinking of just generally what Marianne was talking about unity versus diversity, we all need to breathe, whatever, and we all need to eat. But we don't need to eat the same things, or even breathe in the same way. There are breatharians who don't even eat, which is, I'll stop there.
So you're referring particularly to what Marianne was saying, and you mentioning about unity versus diversity, and you believe that we have some very simple commonalities, like we need to breathe, we need to eat. We don't need to do that in the same way, but it's something that make us very united, similar.
Right. So I feel that for XR and for us, and this is also coming off of James's little bit, the more we clearly define our goals and our priorities, the more people then can organize around it. but you can, like, there are different paths to getting to the top of a mountain. I'll stop there.
The more we focus, better define our goals,
Mm-hmm.
defines the ability to unite our forces and our
Mm-hmm.
actions to change for
Right.
the change.
Yeah, and I'll just say in reviewing and listening to XR, for instance, there seems to be what I consider, in my opinion, a false duality between, doing these actions, these very intense, dramatic actions, and what is kind of being talked about, incrementalism or things like that. And there's a tension there. And I think sometimes you might need those direct actions. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but you also need the incrementalism. You need everything moving in the same directions towards the goal. Sorry?
I'm afraid I don't know the word incrementalism.
Step by step, small steps.
Okay. So you don't want to see everything in a kind of opposition between nonviolent direct action and the rest of activity.
Mm-hmm.
You think about more, well, it sounds, maybe I don't understand that, but it sounds like you want to be more systemic, slow, step by step acting. Is that what you mean?
Well, tools need to be used in certain situations. So I'm not saying that we should be systemic and slow. I'm saying, though, we shouldn't devalue the systemic and slow. We need everything, every tool that possibly can be used.
So be more, I've forgotten the word, but kind of embracing every tool and every step and every method, every action, and appreciating the variety of methods, tools, and ways to go to the goal. That's what you mean?
Yes, within the parameters of the principles and goals. Yes, thanks. I feel fully heard.
Okay. Thank you. I'm not sure who didn't speak for a while. Maybe you, Edwin?
Okay, listening.
It's very interesting discussion today. I didn't expect it will sometimes, you never know what will gonna happen during the circle. So it's very interesting, very, I have a lot of ideas, a lot of notes. So from time to time, it's difficult to focus on what somebody is saying because I want to make my notes to remember what the idea that came to me.
So you're finding it a very interesting discussion and a lot of ideas are coming up and just noticing that every circle is different. And so you're just addressing the issue of note taking and trying to capture the ideas.
Yeah. And I'm building in my mind the whole system of how to implement some processes, some customs, habits. I have a lot of points on my notes. Yeah.
So you've got making a lot of notes about how to, do systems change works and create customs and norms and different things like that.
Yeah, and how to about the whole system and about the process of implementation as well, because those are two things. And I'm a member of international support team, regenerative cultures working group. So we are thinking about such project like implementing the systemic. I don't know if the better is using systemic or systematic. Systemic, I think. A systemic solution, sort of.
So you're part of a group IST that's looking at how to implement these systemic changes.
Yeah, yeah. And referring to unity in diversity and diversity, there is this term regenerative cultures in XR, and I purposely saying that in plural, regenerative cultures. So there is an element of not imposing one solution to everyone, but letting it be diverse. So there are goals, but there might be different diverse ways to achieve those goals. And every culture, every group might do that a little bit differently. And well, that's well, something happened on our screen. I hope everything is okay.
So you're just noticing a change on the screen, and you're just mentioning that XR tries to have sort of a goal, but you can have different, creating cultures for regenerative cultures, and every group can sort of create it their own way.
Yeah, that's something that is also important, and I'm thinking how to make it an element of this process.
Mm-hmm.
How to let it happen differently, but being still this process.
So you're looking at like doing the empathy circles or spreading the empathic approach. How do you have that same sort of mindset that you've got the goal and people can sort of approach it in their own way?
Yeah. So that will be very interesting. I'm very thrilled by all the ideas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so feeling thrilled by all the ideas that are coming up about doing that.
Yeah, thank you. I feel fully heard.
Okay. Marianne, could I speak to you? Yeah, so that does, I mean, that's sort of the mission that I've kind of set myself to. Well, the larger vision is a culture of empathy, just seeing that if we place sort of this empathic way of being and mindset as a primary social value, that it'll just foster more well-being. So for that's sort of the foundation for me in terms of, goal or vision.
Your goal, your vision is this wider perspective of building a culture of empathy.
Yeah, and I see that like in my family, like, growing up, there was sort of this generation gap between my, parents and myself, kind of more liberal and thought I had the answer, and they were conservative and so forth. And, that whole sort of mindset created difference, cultural differences. And one thing for me that I found just with empathy, empathizing with them and then kind of bring them into sort of a mutual empathic relationship, it creates a sense of connection, which just feels really good. That's sort of one of the underlying, needs or feelings that I value, is that sense of connection.
One of your motivations is your value for the sense of connection, which you've experienced in your family through empathy, despite the differences.
Yeah, and then just seeing, having spent 10 years traveling around the world, after high school, And, you know, having been evangelical Christian, I thought, oh, I know the answers to life, and traveling to all these places. And it's like, oh, well, you know, people are pretty friendly and kind and, you know, all over. And if I was here, I would be believing what people are, you know, believing here. You know, if you're in Indonesia, you're a Muslim, or India, you're Hindu, whatever. There's, you know, something deeper. So that common humanity between people, and just seeing that was like another, you know, sort of value, was just seeing the common humanity of everyone, even people like James who get really out there, try to stir things up. You know, there's still that common humanity under that. And I know that if we just, you know, talk and, you know, that we can really connect with each other. So just, you know, I see that with people all over, even people I'm really pissed off with. I know that underneath it, if we can just connect with each other and see each other's common humanity, that we can get kind of past that, yeah, those differences, and find that sort of connection.
And your value has grown through travel and noticing, you know, that there's something common that's essentially human in all people. And even when there are people who bring things up that might be different specifically, that you see underneath that is our commonality. We can connect there.
Yeah, and then
something essential to being.
Yeah, it's those common feelings, you know, that feeling, you know, it's painful when you're ignored, right? It's painful. Yeah. So I know, you know, everybody's kind of has that feeling. It's like you get ignored and it's painful. And, you know, I can say that's pretty much for everyone. So that's sort of getting down to those common feelings that we all have. And we're actually we have a group that's looking at articulating the sort of the individual values of a culture of empathy, you know, things like common humanity, you know, connection, and we're looking right now at openness. There's a feeling around openness, like when we're open, you know, can share who we are. And I even hearing that from Jessica, right? Jessica says, oh, I've got this out. I was able to be open. It feels so good just to be able to share what's been churning around in my head. That's another kind of aspect of a culture of empathy, is sort of that being able to be open about what's going on in us.
And so one of the things you're doing is you have a group specifically looking and exploring the values associated with the culture of empathy. And for example, openness as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, that compares to closeness, like these groups, and we record these because we try to be open. There's groups that's, oh, it's all secretive. It's our little group, you know, we're all scared and stuff. And, you know, maybe you need that. Some people just don't have the, you know, but I think it's this movement towards openness and transparency, you know, is sort of is part of a culture of empathy.
And part of the reason that these meetings are recorded is moving in the direction of being open.
Yeah, and I feel fully heard. My time's up.
Okay.
I have a lot more to say,
Yeah.
but my time's up. Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Oh gosh.
I think Jessica didn't speak for a while.
Okay, thanks. Okay, Jessica. Yeah. First of all, I want to apologize for all my moving around, and I'm sorry if that's been distracting. And I have noticed myself my own distraction, like James is, his observation is, you know, correct, and it's partly yeah, there's a lot, like even what you said, Carolina, there's so many things. They're very stimulating. I'm taking notes. Maybe some things like it's evocative, all this stuff on the table, I find. So I get a lot of thoughts about it, and then my attention goes. And it also has made me reflect on the fact that maybe when there's 4 people, it's maybe a little bit easier on the attention, maybe. So anyway, that's just a thought. I'm going to get my notes. Excuse me, I left them on the other side.
I'm going to plug my computer in, so please just bear with me 1 second.
Okay.
Otherwise, the computer's going to die, and that would not be
Oh,
very
okay.
empathic of me.
Mm. Yeah.
So, just what I heard you say is that you feel apologetic, that you.
You know what? I'm going to stop you. You don't need to repeat it.
Okay.
And sorry, I don't know if that doesn't sound harsh. But I was thinking too of saying, maybe I'll let you know when I want a reflection, or if you feel you need to stop me in order to hear, then do so. Because I feel like I have so much to say and there's only so much time. And one of the things I want to say is you're a very good listener, Jessica. And the whole maturity level of this group is really impressive to me. Can you imagine the impression I'm getting of XR through participating in these circles? And it gives me tremendous hope to think that there's people who are geared to stopping environmental degradation, and at the same time they're working really hard on their own internal strengths and collaboration. That gives me tremendous hope. You don't need to repeat that. What I noticed for me is after the last time I spoke about the unity and diversity, I think it was helpful for me to say that and to have that be heard, because that wasn't the thing that really wanted to be expressed. The thing that I think is wanting to be heard is under that. And the way I am, it's harder to get in touch with it when there's something on top of it that I feel I need to say. So I'll let you see if you can.
What I hear is that you noticed something interesting happen after you expressed your feelings about the difference between unity and diversity, and I think also solidarity and unity, and the interesting and what you say is that it's that really wasn't the crux of what you had wanted to raise. That was maybe a sheath to what was really beneath that, and what you wanted to get to.
Right. And what I want to get to is still a little hard to get to. So right now, what I want to express is the value for this process. Which is that we have within us what needs to be heard. A lot of the mediation we have within us. You can go ahead with that.
That what is really needing to come up for you is very difficult, very challenging to raise. And I was then distracted. I'm sorry. Somebody.
Okay, that's okay. I don't know if the topic is challenging, but it's not so easy to access. And what helps me to access it is the listening process.
So it's not so much the subject, but it's more how to access it, or how to articulate it, or to know what it is, the quality of it. Mm-hmm. And what can help that is the process of the listening, and hearing it back.
Right, right. And I know the time is up, but I suspect that that's a source of conflict in general in groups. This inability to get at what's inside ourselves, really.
Yeah, so I hear you say that it's that is the challenge. It's the inability or the complexity to really get to what it is that we want to talk about, we want to express, and that is the reason for conflict often.
Yeah, thank you, Jessica.
I don't know what's the policy here. Do you just choose somebody that hasn't spoken for a while? Is that what you do?
Yeah, or whoever you want. It's nice to spread it around, but if there's somebody you really want to have listen to you, then you can choose them too. It's up to you.
Bill, would you like to listen to me?
Sure would.
Yeah, this is quite intense, and in a good way. It's not what I was expecting, actually, and I'm finding this very interesting and quite challenging also, and just want to mirror what Mary Ann said about finding this so stimulating and wanting to make notes, and I'm also very tired. I'm sleep deprived at the moment, so my concentration span I'm finding it difficult to focus. So what I want to talk about is something that James picked up on, and the word arrogance really stuck with me. And I don't feel judged by that, but actually feel quite enlightened by that. And suddenly there was like this light bulb moment from hearing you talk about that, James. And there's something really powerful about that sentiment, and something that feels really, really real and truthful around. And maybe if this is how I understood you, was that we can only, how can we push another system on a system? Or anyway, that's how I understood it.
Okay, I'm going to stop you,
right, yeah.
Just to get the bit. So basically, this is a process that it's really affected you. It's challenging, but in a good way. And you were specifically focused on what James brought up about arrogance. And you didn't feel threatened or challenged by it, but you're really trying to consider arrogance in the context of everything we're talking about.
Yeah, and how like it's really kind of been an enlightening, listening to James was enlightening for me, because I recognized an arrogance in myself around wanting people to know, you know, what works. Mm-hmm. And yeah, and that was really humbling for me actually to hear that, because yeah, the first person that you change is yourself, you know, and I come from like a 12-step fellowship background, and that's like a real principle within that fellowship is to, you know, the only person that you can change is yourself. And so it really tapped into my understanding of that, and how this group, for example, and I really like the idea that James had around, you know, developing this group, or, you know, a group of my choice, and being an example, but without that being my agenda, you know, not like, look at us, we're doing this really well, but like, just, yeah, maybe not pushing my ideas on other people.
So in James's reference to arrogance, you were looking at your own arrogance inside, in the sense that you feel that you have some tools or skills or processes that seem to work very well, and you don't really want to proselytize around them, and that you want to have a sense of your own vulnerability, and that the only person you really have to change, that you can change, is yourself. And so you're kind of doing an internal investigation to see what you need to change in yourself and how you need to do that in order to create some of the effects that you want to see.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel that I'm aware of my privilege in that, and that, you know, I come from a background where maybe I feel more comfortable in this kind of setting, and, you know, not completely, but more than some, and so why would I think it's that simple for people just to turn up and bare their souls? And also, you know, I don't have the experience of others who are judged on a daily basis, maybe, and why would I think that that it's that simple for people? And I've never really agreed with defining myself, or not defining, but identifying with the word privilege, because I think in my belief is that in this system, actually, that we're all, that we're all oppressed. Obviously, some to a much greater extent than others. But yeah, it's really just interesting in this particular point to see a new way to think about that. Yeah, so thank you.
So you're thinking about, you never identified with privilege per se, because we're all oppressed in some cases, but you're also seeing some are oppressed more than others, and you're starting to see what I kind of feel is nuances and complexities, and looking all under the overreaching goal of trying to spread dialogue and communication, good communication with people, I feel, whether using this tool or others. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And really the biggest thing that I'm taking away from that is that the change starts with me. That's my point, I think. So.
Right. And so any change really has to start internally. And
yeah, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Okay.
Okay, James, we're coming, I think, to the top of the hour here, so you can just have like 11 minutes. Maybe just could end here and then do a go around debrief. It's like, how was the experience today? What do you like about the empathy circle process? Maybe what you would wish for. Just take about 2 minutes to just finish, just to share anything. Would you call on people? Oh, Bob, do you want to start and then call on people? Go through and call on.
Okay. I have never been a part of an empathy circle with 2 people. And I think 7 is too many. Maybe 2 is enough, maybe 3 is enough, maybe 4 is enough. But I thought 7 was too many. And I was thrilled and overjoyed to hear reference to Bill W. And I'm glad about that. And again, happy to be here. Want to come back next week, though. I'll be at a different event, so I won't be joining you next Friday. But it's so good to be with you today. Thanks. Jessica.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's been really interesting, challenging, and I feel, I don't know the background of this group, but I feel maybe that I've stepped into quite an intimate group. Maybe I'm wrong, or that you've known each other for some time. Maybe not, but yeah, it'd be interesting to join again and see how fewer people works, because I don't have that experience yet. So thank you for allowing me into this space. Edwin?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I like it to smaller groups, 4 people, but then when we have 7, it's hard to divide into 3 and 4. So it's always, at that point, it's hard to know what to do. I actually did like the 7 today, and people in the 7 group. So yeah, I just really enjoyed it. And yeah, that's it. Bill?
Okay. Well, I always enjoy it. And it's interesting in responding to Jessica, some of us have known each other for longer time, some of us for less. But I think it's, in my opinion, it's the effectiveness of this process that gives everybody that feeling of intimacy. And I certainly share it. And it's valid for me. So I enjoyed it. I guess I'm sort of on the line about the smaller group, larger group thing. Myself, there are pluses and minuses. And I just am, I'm encouraged by everybody who comes to these circles, their willingness to share and to be open and transparent. And that is, it's a great benefit to me, and I thank everyone. That's it. And Marianne.
Well, I'm most of all deeply, deeply thankful, deeply grateful that you make this available and open. Yeah, I can't quite express what I get out of it. A lot of support and for what I want to do, I guess, or just for my own internal process, which is important, right, for living and being human. And what I see this today is we're practicing our attention, and 7 is a different way. And if we want to make a change on our planet, I think one of the most powerful things that we have in healing is the quality of our attention. So I'm really happy for this opportunity. Yeah, thank you.
Want to choose the next person?
Oh, Carolina.
I always afraid a little bit when there is a newcomer to the circle and this person doesn't have opportunity to more experience, and 7 people circle is not such opportunity because you have less turns to speak. And so I was afraid how Jessica would feel today. But I assume it was enough to feel how it works, and I'm happy with that. And yes, this circle is quite, yeah, there's quite few people who know each other for some time. But sometimes we have dozen people who barely know each other, and it works the same somehow. So yeah, I would agree with Bill that this is the sort of aspect of the process, the facet of this process. Yeah, thank you. And I pass to Bill, to James.
Thanks. I'm satisfied that we began talking about systems and differences versus similarities and how to work with them. I think an understanding of that is really useful. I'm also satisfied that we stayed in a larger group. I have a different experience of group sizes. I think I been in empathy groups of 10 people, 30 people, even 100 people. And I've really appreciated how in a large group, you know, the energy works. And especially in a movement like XR, where there's often large groupings of people, I think it's useful for us to have experience with the various kinds of sizes. Yeah, I enjoyed today, and I'm glad to have a newcomer. Jessica, welcome. And I'm also glad that the group is working together, that there are people are gaining familiarity, and the group is maturing through working with the same people. And I'm done. So Bill.
Oh, I already checked out. Is there anybody else who has?
I think
Everyone.
Yeah, everyone went. So, okay, then just in terms of the schedule, in half an hour, we have our Empathy Circle support group. So in that group, everybody's welcome to come to that. That's for anyone wanting to facilitate Empathy Circles. You get 15 minutes to share any ideas, get feedback. You sort of facilitate those 15 minutes the way you want. We'll start off talking a little bit about the Empathy Circle, the XR Empathy Circle work group. Just going to be just a short overview of it, and then we'll have times for everyone to share. Next Wednesday, we have our Empathy Cafe on designing what we're calling empathic direct action. So instead of just nonviolent direct action, how do we design direct actions that are sort of based on empathy? And then next Friday, we have this group again. Oh, and next week, on the 14th, there's going to be an Empathy Circle with the San Francisco group. I've kind of gotten more connected with that group, and we're holding an online circle with them. So you're welcome to come to that. It would be good to have a good turnout for that. And you get to meet, hopefully, some of the San Francisco XR group.
It will be online.
It's going to be online. Yeah, it'll be an hour later than the start time. But then we'll have to check too, because on the 8th, we change time zones. So got to really watch the time zone shift between Europe and America. So those are some upcoming events. And so that's it for now. We'll see you in 30 minutes if you can come. Yeah, Mary Ann, you're muted. You're muted, Mary Ann.
Is there a topic for the San Francisco meeting?
It's going to be a support group. It's just come do Empathy Circle for personal support. So just whatever
is it recorded?
We weren't planning on recording it, so it's
Yes.
a place to just come and not worry about being public. Yeah, Jessica.
It's quite late here, so I won't be able to make the facilitation training in half an hour, but that sounds really interesting to me. And when would be the next opportunity? Is that at the same time every Friday?
Yeah, it's every Friday. And as we get more people interested, we'll try to scale up, kind of more time zones, make it more accessible. It's not terribly accessible to like Australia and Asia. So, and it is rather late, for Europe. So,
I mean, maybe next Friday I'll have more energy to join, because it's only 8 p.m. here, but I'm ready for bed. But it might be that next Friday I'll have some.
Oh, great. Yeah, and we are talking with other groups too about holding some cafes, empathy cafes, for example, with the principals, XR principal guardians. We're talking with them tomorrow about doing a 10-week series on the XR values and principles. So it would be 1 week, one cafe every week on a different value, going through all 10, doing what we're doing here to, so, and there's a bunch of other projects too that are sort of in the works. Give you a heads up, we're talking about doing a Empathy Circle with Roger Hallam. So that's kind of in the works too. It's moving along. So just, yeah, Carolina.
I just want to ask Bill to write in the chat the word I didn't know. Opportunity to learn English.
What was the word?
You are muted.
Oh, was it incremental?
Yes, incremental.
Incremental.
Doesn't it? Maybe I'm mistaken, but does it
Thank you.
Slowly in the beginning and then kind of gains more speed, or
I've understood it's just, your incremental change is small change versus large change. So there's not it's not getting bigger. It's not like a snowball. It's like the snowball stays.
Yeah, snowball. I look
but it's
at
not
the
like
dictionary.
It's not like a snowball, and it does get bigger, but slowly and steadily.
Yeah.
And that's sort of, I think came up with Roger Hallam. He's talking about incremental change versus, you know, big, almost revolutionary sort of change. So I think that was part of the context.
There's a lot of controversy here at the moment about Roger Hallam's trip.
More topics for the empathy circles.
About what he's doing over there, so it's interesting.
Okay, well, great. Then we'll see you in half an hour, or hopefully next
Edwin,
week too.
did you see my chat?
Ooh.
Oh, will it be recorded? Oh, yeah, it will not be recorded. We didn't plan on that one being
Okay,
recorded.
sorry, I didn't. Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. See you shortly.
Yeah.